Chosen one, stop what you are doing right now and lock every part of your attention onto this message. That restless feeling you have been carrying around all week, the one that keeps telling you something is wrong, but you cannot identify what it is. I need you to sit with that for just a moment longer, because I am about to tell you exactly where it is coming from. The enemy is working overtime today for one reason and one reason only. He knows that what I am about to say to you will break the agreement you have unknowingly been living under, and he cannot afford for you to hear it. It all shifts in the next few minutes. Or maybe you woke up at 3 a.m. in the morning this week with an unsettled feeling about a specific person, a specific situation, a specific door, and you sat in the dark asking God whether what you were sensing was real or whether you were losing your mind. You felt it. You knew something. And then the voices started. The voice that said you were being too sensitive. The voice that said you had no proof. The voice that said you were pushing people away with your discernment. Maybe you even apologized for feeling it. Maybe you tried to suppress it to keep the peace, to seem reasonable, to avoid the conflict. And yet here you are. Because what you felt was real. The enemy has been working overtime this week for one reason and one reason only. He knows that your intuition is not just instinct. He knows it is a divine frequency, and the moment you stop second-guessing it, his entire operation against your life collapses. That is why he has been flooding your mind with doubt. That is why every person who needed you to stay confused kept telling you that you were overthinking. That is why the warfare has felt so personal, so targeted, so relentless. Because you are not just sensitive, you are spiritually calibrated, and calibrated people are dangerous to darkness. It all comes to light now. The confusion ends, the gaslighting ends. The cycle of trusting yourself and then betraying yourself ends, not because of luck and not because time finally ran out on the situation. It ends because of what you chose to do, because somewhere in the middle of all the noise, you chose to hold on to what you felt even when you could not prove it. That act of quiet faithfulness to your own spirit was the moment everything shifted. You did not find this recording by accident. The algorithm did not bring you here. The Holy Spirit did. This is a divine appointment that was scheduled before the foundations of the earth. You are standing at a threshold right now, and what you are about to hear is not information. It is confirmation. Do not click away. Your future self is begging you to stay, because if you leave before this message is finished, you will walk back out into the noise without the one thing that will silence it permanently. In the next few minutes, I am going to hand you the spiritual verdict that confirms what your intuition already knew. I am going to walk you through the exact pattern the enemy uses to make chosen people distrust their own discernment, so you can identify precisely where you were being manipulated and where you were actually winning. And at the end, I am going to give you a declaration that seals your confidence in the gift God placed inside you, so that no voice, no person, and no circumstance can ever make you doubt it again. I know what the last 72 hours have felt like. The atmosphere has not just been tense, it has been electric, like the charge before lightning strikes. Maybe you have been watching something unfold in real time, something you predicted, something you warned about, something you felt in your body before it became visible. And instead of feeling victorious, you feel strangely heavy. Because being right about something painful is not a celebration, it is a weight. Or maybe you are still waiting for the confirmation. Maybe you felt something, you acted on it, you made a decision based entirely on what your spirit told you, and the proof has not fully surfaced yet. And in that waiting space, the enemy has been planting a very specific lie. He has been whispering that your discernment cost you something it did not have to cost you. He is replaying that moment when you walked away, or when you spoke up, or when you chose distance over closeness, and he is telling you that was impulsive. He is telling you that you moved too fast, that you judged too quickly, that a more patient, more gracious, more forgiving person would have stayed. He is telling you the gift that God placed inside you is actually a flaw. But I need you to hear what the scripture actually says about this moment. 1 Corinthians 2015 says, "The person with the Spirit makes judgments about all things, but such a person is not subject to merely human judgments." Listen to that. The person with the spirit makes judgments about all things. That feeling you had was not paranoia. It was the Spirit of God in you doing exactly what it was designed to do. And no human verdict, no accusation of being too sensitive, no social pressure to perform doubt carries any authority over what the Spirit of the living God deposited inside you. You are not in a cycle of confusion. You are in a conclusion. The heaviness you feel right now is not the weight of having made a mistake. It is the weight of a chapter that is finally, completely, permanently closing. The tension you feel is not instability. It is the cord being pulled to its absolute limit right before it snaps and the new thing rushes in. You think that moment when you chose to trust yourself instead of the noise was risky. You think walking in your discernment without applause, without validation, without evidence that anyone else could see was a vulnerability. But let me reframe your reality right now. That was not weakness. That was warfare. And you won. And what's happening in your body right now is not anxiety. It's not overthinking. It's not you being too sensitive or too much. What you are feeling is recognition. Your spirit already knows the truth before your mind catches up. That's not a glitch in your design. That's the design itself. Imagine your body as a finely tuned instrument, vibrating in response to unseen forces. The tension you feel, the quickened heartbeat, the knot in your stomach, these aren't malfunctions. They are the strings of your soul plucking in harmony with a truth your mind hasn't yet grasped. It's an echo of divine knowing resonating within your very cells. Most people have been taught to distrust the very thing God wired them with. They were told to wait for proof, to ask for a second opinion, to logic their way through what was never meant to be logically processed. They were handed maps for a terrain that could only be navigated by an inner compass. So they silenced the signal. They apologized for the feeling as if a divine whisper was an imposition. They talked themselves out of what they already knew deep within their core, convincing themselves it was just imagination or overreaction. And then, with a sigh of resignation, they watched their inner knowing unfold exactly the way their gut had already told them it would. A silent testament to their ignored wisdom. That's not coincidence, that's confirmation. It's the universe, and more importantly, God, whispering, "See, I told you." And if you've lived that cycle more than once, if you've looked back at crossroads, at relationships, at opportunities, and said with a pang of regret, "I knew it, I felt it, why didn't I trust it?" then this message was placed in front of you today for a reason, like a lighthouse beam cutting through a fog of self-doubt. Some messages don't just inform, they activate. If something stirred deep in your spirit just now, a resonance, a quiet hum of recognition, you may be ready to receive the Chosen One's blueprint. This sacred guide reveals the 8 divine patterns behind your calling, your suffering, and your destiny. It doesn't just offer information, it offers keys to unlock the very blueprint of your soul's purpose. It also comes with the full audiobook, so you can absorb it during prayer, rest, or quiet moments with God, letting the wisdom seep into you like a balm. And for those called to speak His truth, those who feel the fire of prophecy within them, you'll also receive Activating Your Prophet Mantle, a powerful bonus ebook for those carrying a prophetic assignment. The link is in the first pinned comment, but only for a limited time, because divine opportunities often come with a sense of urgency for those who are ready. Now here's what you need to understand first. Your intuition was never just a feeling. In Scripture, the prophet Elijah, a man of immense spiritual power, didn't hear God in the cataclysmic earthquake that rent the mountains. He didn't hear Him in the roaring inferno of the fire that followed. He heard Him in the still small voice, the delicate whisper that, in the cacophony of the world and even within one's own busy mind, almost goes unnoticed. That whisper, that subtle nudging, is what you've been calling your gut feeling. That whisper is what you've been second-guessing your entire life, treating it as unreliable noise rather than divine direction. And heaven, with infinite patience, has been waiting for you to stop drowning it out with doubt and distraction. But here's where it goes deeper, into a territory many shy away from. The reason most people suppress their intuition isn't because they don't believe in it at all. It's because, deep down, they believe in it too much, and it terrifies them. Because when you truly trust what you sense, when you honor that inner knowing, you can no longer pretend you didn't know. You become responsible for the knowing. And that responsibility, that sacred burden of truth, asks you to move, to choose, to confront the uncomfortable, to walk away from the familiar but harmful, even when the path of least resistance is to stay still, silent, and claim ignorance. It's the fear of stepping into the fullness of what you perceive. So the suppression isn't truly about doubt of the signal itself. It's about avoidance of the consequences that come with heeding it. And avoidance, when it wears a spiritual costume, looks remarkably like virtue. It looks like patience. It looks like waiting on God. It looks like profound humility. But underneath it all, if you are honest with yourself right now, and I'm asking you, in this sacred moment, to be profoundly honest, underneath it all is fear. Fear that if you trust what you felt and you're wrong, you'll be humiliated, exposed as foolish or mistaken. And even more terrifying for some, fear that if you trust what you felt and you're right, you'll have to do something about it. To act, to change, to embrace a destiny that may feel daunting. And what's coming next will likely surprise you. It always does when we start to uncover hidden truths. Because here's what the enemy, that adversary of your soul's progress, understood about you before you fully understood it about yourself. He didn't attack your faith directly first. He attacked your perception, your ability to see and feel what is real. If he could make you distrust your own senses, your own inner witness, he wouldn't need to fight you directly in the grand spiritual battles. You would, unknowingly, do his work for him. Every single time you talked yourself out of a glaring red flag, convincing yourself it was just your imagination. Every time you apologized for a feeling that was a divine alert, soothing it away instead of heeding it. Every time you returned to a person, a situation, or a path that your spirit had already clearly released, that wasn't weakness on your part, that was warfare. Targeted, strategic, and deeply personal warfare aimed at the one thing that makes you a dangerous threat to darkness, your innate, God-given ability to discern what is real, what is true, and what is aligned with divine will. Think about what that means for a moment. The enemy, the architect of confusion and deception, doesn't waste energy, doesn't deploy intricate strategies on people who pose no threat to his kingdom of shadows. If your discernment has been under constant attack, if there's been a recurring pattern of fog-like confusion, crippling self-doubt, emotional second-guessing that leaves you feeling perpetually adrift, that is not random. That is a sign of a targeted campaign. And being targeted means you carry something of immense value, something worth the enemy's focused effort to neutralize. You carry a light he fears. But this leads us to something most people miss entirely, and it may be the most crucial revelation in this entire message. Your intuition is not just a defensive shield, a warning system telling you what to move away from. It's also a directional beacon, a spiritual GPS showing you precisely what to move toward. And somewhere in the process of suppressing the warning signals, of silencing the alarms, you also inadvertently suppress the invitation signals. You stop trusting the gentle but persistent pull toward certain people who resonate with your soul's purpose, certain rooms where your gifts will be needed, certain callings that align with your deepest destiny, certain seasons of your life that are divinely ordained. Because the very mechanism you used to ignore the danger was the same mechanism you used to ignore the invitation to your greatest potential. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share next is the pivotal piece, the insight that can truly break the cycle of self-betrayal. When God called Samuel in the night, a young man dedicated to the temple, Samuel didn't immediately recognize it as God's voice. He didn't have a pre-established connection. He ran to Eli, the older priest, 3 times, mistaking the divine call for human intervention, before Eli finally taught him how to recognize the voice of the Lord. And the text says something profound and often overlooked. It says Samuel did not yet know the Lord in that intimate, recognizable way. This means the encounter, though real, was not yet familiar to him. He had zeal. He had presence in the temple. He had proximity to the sacred, but he had not yet learned to identify the subtle, distinct frequency of the divine voice he was already hearing. And that is precisely where so many beautiful souls are right now, hearing the divine whisper, sensing the spiritual currents, but not yet knowing how to confidently identify what they're hearing as divine guidance, as God speaking directly to them. The crucial shift from simply sensing to truly knowing, from that hesitant, "I think I feel something," to the confident, "I know what this is and I absolutely trust it." That profound transformation doesn't happen through more prayer alone, though prayer is vital. It happens through obedience to the last thing your discernment told you to do, even if it was small. Because intuition, like any spiritual muscle, like faith itself, grows and strengthens exponentially when it is exercised. Every single time you honor what you sensed and act on it, you are sending a powerful affirmation to your spirit. I trust what lives here. I trust this inner compass. I trust the divine connection. And that trust compounds. That compounding trust becomes unshakable clarity. That clarity then blossoms into genuine spiritual authority. And here's where it goes into sacred territory, a place many teachers and healers, even well-meaning ones, are hesitant to explore. There is a counterfeit to true spiritual discernment, and it often operates in the same spiritual neighborhood. It can sound remarkably like intuition. It can carry the same sense of urgency and conviction, but it does not come from the same pure divine source. It's often referred to as familiar spirits, and they are called familiar because they are intimately acquainted with your patterns, your deepest wounds, your unique triggers, your personal language. They can mimic the feeling of a divine signal with such terrifying precision that, without true spiritual grounding and a robust internal discernment framework, you cannot tell the difference by feeling alone. This is not said to create fear, but to foster a profound and healthy reverence. Because if you've ever made a decision that felt spiritually right in the moment, only to have it lead to devastation or deep regret, it is profoundly worth asking, not just, was I deceived, but more importantly, what in me was the entry point for that deception? What wound, what unmet need, what unhealed place was the counterfeit speaking to? Because that is where the true transformative work lies, not in simply rebuking the deception from the outside, but in healing and wholeness within, which is what made the counterfeit convincing in the first place. In just a moment, we'll uncover what's been hidden in plain sight for so long, the core issue you've been carrying, perhaps without even realizing how heavy its burden truly is. Because beneath all of it, beneath the suppressed signals, the relentless warfare against your God-given perception, the pervasive confusion between the true divine voice and the cunning counterfeit, there is a root. And the root is this simple yet devastating truth you were taught at some point in your journey, likely in your formative years, that your inner world, your feelings, your perceptions, your very sense of what is real, was unreliable. Perhaps it was a parent who consistently dismissed your emotions, labeling them as overreactions or dramatic. Maybe it was a religious community that taught you to submit what you sense to external, often fallible human authority without question, effectively invalidating your inner witness. Maybe it was a toxic relationship that so thoroughly distorted your sense of reality, gaslighting you into oblivion, that you stopped trusting your own mind and heart altogether. Whatever the specific origin story, something happened. A seemingly small incident or a pattern of invalidation that planted a deep seed of inner distrust. And that seed, watered by every subsequent disappointment, every instance of self-doubt, every ignored intuition, grew into a dense, suffocating forest of hesitation that now stands like an impenetrable barrier between you and the vibrant, purpose-filled life your discernment was divinely designed to unlock. This is not your fault. You did not choose this programming, but it is now undeniably your responsibility to transcend it. Because the season you are now entering, the divine assignment that is unfolding before you, does not have room for the hesitation and self-doubt that the last season meticulously cultivated. What God is now moving you toward, the next level of your calling and destiny, requires the full, unhindered use of every single gift, He intricately placed inside you. And discernment is not a secondary optional gift. It is the governing gift. It is the master key, the foundational operating system that determines what you receive and what you rightly reject, who you allow into your sacred space and who you gracefully release. Without your discernment functioning at its full, God-intended capacity, every other spiritual gift you possess becomes vulnerable to manipulation and misuse. And here's the part you probably didn't expect: the profound reframing that illuminates everything you just received. The proof your intuition was right, the moments of vindication when you look back and see the accuracy of your inner knowing, was never meant to be solely a moment of, "I told you so." It was meant to be a moment of commissioning, a divine endorsement for your next step. When you look back and see that you knew, when the confirmation arrives like undeniable sunlight, melting away all doubt, that's not heaven saying, "See, I knew you could do it." That's heaven saying, with loving authority, "Now you know what you carry. Now you understand the power of this gift. Now stop apologizing for it. Now stop shrinking it to make others comfortable or to fit into their limited perceptions. Now stop waiting for permission from people who were never given ultimate authority over the divine blueprint that God placed within you." The shaking you feel within, that sense of upheaval or intense energy, is not fear. The shaking is activation. It's the powerful, palpable moment the gift stops being a theoretical concept you ponder and starts being an operational force you wield. It's the moment you transition from saying, "I think I might be discerning," to the empowered declaration, "I know what I'm carrying, and I know how to use it for God's glory." You were not built for confusion. You were built for profound, unwavering clarity. And that clarity has been yours all along. It has simply been buried, obscured, and hidden beneath layers of conditioning, societal expectations, and well-intentioned but misguided teachings about yourself that were never actually true. So before you sleep tonight, before the relentless noise and demands of tomorrow find you, I invite you to do something powerful. Place your hand gently over your heart, feel the steady rhythm of your own life force, and speak this sacred affirmation over yourself with all the conviction of your awakened spirit. I release every agreement I have ever made with doubt, and I break every negative word spoken over my mind and spirit that declared me too sensitive, too emotional, or too much. I reclaim the sacred discernment God placed within me before I was even formed in my mother's womb. I wholeheartedly trust what I feel because I know and affirm that He, the divine source of all truth, is the very origin of what I feel. I will no longer apologize for knowing. I will no longer shrink or dim my light to protect someone else's comfort or fragile perception. My perception is not broken. It is being profoundly restored, divinely sharpened, and powerfully commissioned for this critical season. I am not confused. I am awakening into a new dimension of spiritual sight. And what I carry within me is real. It is holy, and it is desperately needed in this generation. I step forward now in clarity. I step forward now in unshakable trust. I step forward now knowing with absolute certainty that I am not imagining things. I am discerning them with divine precision. And from this sacred moment forward, I honor this God-given gift with the unwavering obedience it so profoundly deserves. If this message resonated deeply within you, if it confirmed something your spirit has been carrying and longing to express, don't let this powerful encounter pass without going deeper into its truth. The link in the first pinned comment holds something truly special, a resource that was meticulously built for people exactly like you, people ready to embrace their divine discernment. Go find it. It's waiting for you.